I'm not sure if you've checked your calendar recently, but the calendar has now flipped to the month of March. It is officially conference tournament time, and we've got both the men's and women's tournaments of the American Conference ready to roll from Dickies Arena coming up next week. We've got a brand new edition of All-American to break down both tournaments. We're going to be speaking through the brackets, the possibilities, the madness, the Cinderellas, and we're going to take a look back at what the season has given us in terms of some of the superlatives and some of the great play along the way. She's Maria Trivelpiece, the exceptional reporter of the American Athletic Conference. I'm Kyle Youmans. I'm just a guest, and they asked me to come and talk hoops every now and again. I'm glad to be here, and it's my favorite time of the year. We say that a lot because, of course, we've got a bunch of favorite times of the year.
So many favorite
we
times
love
of
football,
the year.
we love baseball, we love softball, we love volleyball, we love all of it. But guess what? There's something special about March.
There's a reason why they call it March Madness, because it's madness, it's craziness, it's excitement. We're already seeing that as we wind down the final couple days of the season. And as I was prepping for this show, the madness that this entire year has been, I think it's just going to culminate in Dickies Arena in a couple of days, and I cannot wait.
How much sleep have you gotten just getting ready for this event? I'm sure you've had plenty of time.
Oh, yeah,
just
so
kick
much
back,
sleep.
Relax.
Let me tell you. What we sleep in May, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we sleep in. Well, I'm thinking
Maybe more like June or July.
like mid-June, and like I'll be able to sleep for 2 weeks because then we'll have football to get ready for again. So we'll sleep for 2 weeks in June.
There you
We
go.
don't sleep in March because there's too much madness to cover.
Too much madness to cover. Here's what the women's bracket looks like as we sit right now. We're going to go through their side of things early, and you've got a couple of tiebreakers, couple of seedings that can kind of finagle their way into the mix, but for the most part, this is pretty close to what the bracket will look like. I'll actually go through what I think it'll look like in a couple of moments, but let's talk about some of the ways that this has already been locked into place, Maria. UTSA, the regular season champions inside the American Athletic Conference. Give credit to Karen Aston and company. This is a team that overcame a lot in the offseason, has kind of been oversung and overlooked in the past. They were respected. Don't get me wrong. They were 5th out of 13 teams in the preseason poll, but I don't think anybody expected for them to run the table quite like they did in 2025.
I don't think so either, but I think the big difference is that they knew and thought that they could the entire time. I went back when I was prepping for the game that I did with them against East Carolina, and Jordan Jenkins said on media day that we're going to have a 20-plus win season, and they did, and they continue to win games as well. And there's a reason
they've got a chance to go to a 30-win season.
I know, right? They're like they're right on track for that. And so I think that they knew this whole time that they had the ability to do so, and I think that's why you see them where they are at the end of the regular season. I think that Karen Aston has been building this ever since she got to UTSA. She has all the right puzzle pieces. They're finally healthy again. Jordan Jenkins being able to play at the level that she has been, and there's a reason why they're locked in at number 1 because they knew they could do it, and now they're here.
And here's the other top 4 seeds. These are all locked in as all 4 will receive the double bye into the quarterfinals, and then they will await the winners of the second round matchups at Dickies Arena. Now, UTSA and Temple cannot move. They are at 1 and they are at 4. North Texas and South Florida, a team in each regard that has won a game in each regard. North Texas winning on the roads or at home, and then South Florida winning at home as well. They can still flip. North Texas, all they got to do is win one of their final games. And then, of course, South Florida needs a North Texas loss and a win to jump up into that matchup. So kind of an interesting thought process when it comes down to it, because South Florida was the preseason favorite, still very, very good. Temple has had some opportunities across the board to sneak up into that top 4, and they ultimately took it over teams like Tulsa and Tulane that had some different good runs throughout the board. Here's the 5 through 8 seeds. Anything stick out here?
Well, I just think the way that Tulsa's been playing as of late, I think that they're bumping into that 5 spot is something that we maybe expected at the beginning of the year, but that middle of the season when they were struggling, the fact that they're able to not solidify but be at number 5 right now is impressive to me.
Yeah.
Tulane and East Carolina also playing some really good basketball right now, so I think that this can shift a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not.
This is the jumbled mix that we anticipate.
Yes, this is the jumble that a lot can happen in these last few games, and so I don't know if this will look exactly the same when we start the tournament, but that's to be said because I think that, a lot can still happen, and the same for these couple of teams as well.
Yeah, there's still a way that some of these teams can mix and match down the stretch, and Florida Atlantic is the only other team outside of UTSA and Temple that are locked into their seed. They'll be in that first matchup that's played at the Super Pit in Denton. The 12 and 13 seeds will play each other for an opportunity to work in there, which proves to the point Wichita State, Charlotte, both of those teams can end up as that 12 seed. You do not want that. You still have a chance to play for a bye, so it's significant what Charlotte and Wichita State have in front of them down the stretch in order to really make it happen from a bye standpoint. So that's what the bracket looks like to this point. Still some moving and shaking that can happen. We mentioned this in the past, and I want to start a little tradition here.
Ooh, I
on
love
All-American.
Yay.
We have the all-conference teams, right? We have the ability to say, hey, these were the best players in the conference. We're going to leave that to the conference. We're going to leave that to the AAC, to the American Athletic, and make sure that they know, hey, this is unquestioned the all-conference team. But we have an opportunity here to do something a little different. We're going to tweak it just a tad. And we're going to give our A teams. This is Kyle Youmans' A team. This is Maria Trivelpiece's A team. These are on our own accord and on our own criteria that we've given to give an A team a rundown all the way across the board. So I'm going to let you start.
Okay.
You've got your 5 players, your
right,
Maria's A team. What is your criteria and who makes the list?
All right, so I'll start with my criteria. These are the people who need to continue to perform. So some of the best players on their individual teams. And the other criteria that I'm saying is that if opponents do not shut these players down when they're playing them, then that opponent is going to lose because these players are the difference makers on their team. So that being said, Sammy Puisis from South Florida is in one of my guard spots.
Good one.
Delaney Crawford, Tiara East from Temple, Jordan Jenkins from UTSA, and Tamisha Lampkin from North Texas. And I'm going to explain them a little bit. I think some of them are self-explanatory, but I have a little bit extra detail because of the way that they've been performing as of late. Sammy Puisis, I think for me, she's the 5th leading scorer in the conference, averaging 15.3 points per game. But what makes her so different is her ability in the clutch. I know we've talked about that a lot on this show, so Sammy Puisis needs to be on my A team for that reason because people who are good in the clutch play well in March. Moving on to Delaney Crawford, she's been so good in the American her entire career. In particular, she's been playing really well as of late, and that's why you see Tulsa being better. She's the 4th leading scorer in the conference. She had 22 against Memphis, 22 against UAB, 12 against Tulane, and those are the reasons why the Golden Hurricane are starting to be better as we approach this later half of the season. Moving on to Temple, who's won their last 5 games. Now, I know when this airs, it may be a little bit different, but they've won their last 5 games at the point of the recording of this episode. They really share the scoring, but it's Tiara East for me who's really kind of pushing the pace for the Owls. Listen to these numbers when I was going through and prepping. 33 points against Rice, 21 against Memphis. Those are games that they needed to win. She's been phenomenal the entire year. She's the 8th leading scorer in the American. I'm just kind of comparing that to the rest of the league because I want to, if I'm talking about the A team, I want to give my reasons as to why she's on the A team. Moving down a little bit, Jordan Jenkins. That one is just self-explanatory.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about Jordan Jenkins on this show. I'm not going to go too much more into that. And same with Tamisha Lampkin. Those 2 forwards, it's going to be really hard when the American and the coaches have to pick a player of the year when you have those 2 and a couple other players in the mix, but we've highlighted them the entire season. So there's my A team. There's my criteria. That's how I ran it through.
Well, and I think it's a great list. I really do. And I think there's a shot whenever it does come down to it, and we're looking at all conference honorees later on, which is a different list, by the way. It's going to look similar to this. I think Lampkin and Jenkins are headed that direction. Puisis has a chance to be there because of her prowess as a shooter, as an every-level scorer. And then I really like the Tiara East love there. Plus, Delaney Crawford, I think it's a great list across the board. I will say about Delaney Crawford, Tulsa's going to be on the outside looking in of that top 4.
Yep.
And if Tulsa's going to make a charge, they will have to rely on Delaney Crawford. So if I'm circling one player that it is make or break for their specific team, I'm circling the Golden Hurricane and their guard, Delaney Crawford, because she's incredible. I've gotten to see her a couple years now down the road. I've had the pleasure of calling her games multiple times, and when talking to their head coach and talking to Angie Nelp, she says the same thing. She's steady. She's reliable. I'd like to call it ice cold. I think she's just an ice cold shooter. It doesn't matter, but when the lights are brightest, she's going to show up big. Don't be surprised if Tulsa makes a run in the tournament, and if they do, it's going to be on the back of Delaney Crawford. I really like this list. If you had to pick one person off this list that would be your team MVP, who would it be?
That's really tough.
Because this is great.
I know. It's really tough. I think for right now, I'm going with Jordan Jenkins just because her team won the regular season. And they've won the regular season because of her play. So I'm picking that for now. But again, that whole list has an opportunity to be like that MVP of those 5 players.
I think that's where I'm at too. Yeah. I think it's Jordan Jenkins, probably Lampkin second. In that regard.
And it's close. It's very close. Like on any given night, like they could flip flop there. So.
The A team, first ever A team, is given out by Maria Trivelpiece. All right, I've got my list though. It's a little bit different this time around. Let me give you the criteria. Highlighting players who will be the difference between winning and losing in March. And I'm not going to do it as the best player on their team. So your list certainly would fall into this criteria. But I'm taking out the best player, the highest scorer, the most impactful. I'm putting in difference makers. I like to call them X factors because they're still fun to watch and they're crucial to doing what they do best on the floor each and every night. Here's my 5, my A team across the board. Kayla Turner from Temple, Hadley Perriman from Tulsa, Kyla Deck from UNT, Adira Udo from UTSA, and then Laura Putu from South Florida. I'll start with Kayla Turner. Turner, third on her team in terms of points per game. She just averages over 2 a game. But when you look at this Temple team, when she's playing at her best, they play at their best because it allows for players like you talked about earlier with East and company to elevate their game because she's probably the primary ball handler. She's somebody that's going to continue to play great defense. And if you look over the last 5 games where they've continuously won games up to this point in time, including against Tulane, against Wichita State, Memphis, and Rice, she's put up 20 points twice in those games. She's had double digits 4 out of the 5 games, and she's played good basketball outside of maybe UAB where she had to sit down because of some foul trouble and only played in 17 minutes across the board. So I'm going to go with Kayla Turner as my first guard. Same kind of thing can be said for Hadley Perriman. Perriman is 4th on her team in terms of points per game, only 8.7 points per game, but she is the leading rebounder. She's somebody that can play at a rebounding element off the ball and in the guard spot. So continue to look for her as a contributor on the boards. Oh, and by the way, she takes care of the basketball for the most part. If she shoots better, which she hasn't shot very well this year, only 38%, there's a difference maker right there because then the efficiency goes up. She already can rebound at the best of them, and she's had double figures in each of their last 3. What has Tulsa done?
In their last 3?
In their last 3?
One.
They've won all 3 of those games. So if she puts up points, she had a double.
Is that a trick question? I was like, didn't we talk about that?
Double against UAB in that overtime win against the Blazers. She put up 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 steals against South Florida in a huge upset win. Tulsa getting that win over the Bulls. And then she just dominated against Memphis, put up 18 points, 9 assists. I'm talking about her rebounding ability, and she's like, oh, by the way, I can share the rock too. Give me Perryman to be on my list across the board. Same kind of thing can be said for Kyla Deck. Kyla Deck is 3rd on her team in scoring. Was a starter in the early parts of the season, a transfer from Stephen F. Austin for Coach Burton. He put her in the starting lineup over Jocelyn Moore initially. Midway through the year, suffered a concussion, had to sit out for a little bit of time. Jocelyn Moore balled out, kept her team alive in games, actually won a couple of games for North Texas early in conference play. So when Kyla Deck comes back, she's healthy. Coach Burton says, I'm going to keep Jocelyn Moore in the fold, but you're still going to get your minutes. Don't worry, it's just in a different rotation. She's balled out. She's been fantastic throughout the year and continue to be a contributor. In her last couple of games, 10 points against East Carolina in a double OT win. She had 9 points in 22 minutes with 5 rebounds against Charlotte. And then she just went off against the UAB Blazers. 27 points, 4 steals, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in the one game.
Is that good?
Very good. And so I think if Kyla Deck can be that X-factor guard, they have Desiree Wooten, they have Tamisha Lampkin, they have Jocelyn Moore, but now you have another element to focus on, and that doesn't even mention what she does defensively. I think she's the best defensive guard in the conference across the board. If there was an all-defensive team, there may be. I really don't know. If there's an all-defensive team, she needs to be on it, and if she's not, then there's something wrong with the list. The next one, I've been rambling for a little bit. Anything stick out to you before we go to Udo and Putu?
See, I was going to talk about Udo. Like
okay,
that was my highlight when you picked her, because I think she's a person. We talk so much about Jordan Jenkins, right? Yeah. And Sydney Love, too, in the way that she shoots the basketball. But Idara Udo just has such a big presence in the paint, and she distributes from the paint as well. And so I think that's something that really stands out to me, because she's working kind of like 1-2 with Jenkins underneath. And I just really like her ability to not only get her own points, but distribute with Jenkins. So that was going to be the one that I circled on your list. So I'm sorry if I stole some of that from you. But
because they put her in the high post, and they run that offense through her, because they've got Jenkins, best forward in the league. Don't get me wrong. She's on every list possible. But you've got Sydney Love. You've got De Leon Negron out there as well. The guard play is what helps drive the bus along with Jordan Jenkins. But it all doesn't work unless Udo has her game.
Yep.
And it has the distributing, it has the rebounding. This is not a very good rebounding team if Udo's not in the fold. Because then it's just Jordan Jenkins. And Jordan Jenkins is such a dynamic player. You don't want her attacking the boards constantly, over and over and over again. You want somebody else to be able to do that at a high level. Udo does that. She's had 13 rebounds against Memphis. She had 8 rebounds in a win against Tulane. She had double-doubles in 4 games this year, and she continues to take steps in the right direction there. And then my last one is Laura Putu from South Florida. She is the straw that stirs the drink in the post, because if they don't have the post play, South Florida is in an interesting situation, because they have a good guard tandem, and then they have good guard play off the bench. They don't really have that forward presence they were anticipating. Romy Levy from the preseason player of the year hasn't played at the same level that she anticipated, and I think because of that, she's been outshadowed by Putu. That's the play that she's had. But there have been times where Putu will disappear. I think she's the X factor. If she plays well, South Florida is going to make a run, and they may just be the team to beat in the tournament, even up against teams like North Texas and UTSA across the board.
Yeah, I like that analysis, especially with Putu. And I think that's the difference you see in those games that South Florida lost, because when they're playing well, they have the capability to beat teams like Duke or beat teams like UTSA. But when they kind of disappear in the post, that's when they fall short.
Well, just a great example of that. Tulsa, she had 4 points.
Yep.
ECU, she was held to 7 points, and they lost both of those games. So if you continue to look at what South Florida does best, they share the basketball. They have a range of players that they trust to ball handle, and Putu is not a ball handler, but she does everything else well. She makes winning plays. They need her to step up in a big way, and I think there's nothing else that shows that except for these last couple of games for South Florida where they've kind of pitter-pattered down the stretch. They haven't played well down the stretch. They need her to step up in a big way. Play like she did against Florida Atlantic, and they won by double digits. Play like she did against Charlotte when they won by double digits. And then maybe we can talk about what she does in a scoring and a defensive element, because all of that all plays together as well.
Yeah, I don't like to agree with you on a lot of things, but 100% agree with you in the fact that that's what's going to make the difference for South Florida, because I think when they're clicking, Kyle, they're one of the best teams in the league. Like, you saw the way that they played against UTSA. There's that one loss for a reason. And so I just think that that's what I'm looking forward to as we approach the tournament, because as we said, it's madness and anything can happen. That being said, you want to talk some bracket predictions and Cinderellas?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So I put together a simulation of the final week or so, week for the women's side, 2 weeks for the men's side, on how I feel like this thing is going to turn out. And this is how I believe the women's bracket would look like. And if you happen to maybe take a snapshot of what the standings look like right now, it's the exact same top to bottom. And it's not because I didn't want to change it or I don't think. This is legitimately by predicting the final week of basketball. this is what I think the bracket will look like. And of course, we've already locked in the top 4 seeds. I think North Texas will be that top seed across the second seed
yeah.
is what I mean, over the top of South Florida, mostly because South Florida has fallen in each of those last couple of games. They haven't played particularly well down the stretch. They would be in the conversation because they've split, because they've had a similar record throughout the year, but North Texas is locking up that 2 seed pretty quickly across the board. Now, where you get a little bit crazy is when you get down the list here, because we're not just talking about the top 4 seeds. We're talking about how things are going to line up across the board. You've got that matchup between UAB and Rice. I love the 8-9 matchup. Rice and UAB are both teams that I would tab as a possibility to get hot.
Yeah.
They have experience, which is always a plus.
Rice did
March.
it last year, yeah.
Rice did it last year as the 10 seed. And a lot of times if you go up against the 1 seed, you have a chance to make some noise. That happened last year. Same kind of thing. The 1 seed lost their first game, and the 2 seed lost their first game. We could see a similar thing across the board. And I'm also looking at that ECU team that would be in the 7th spot as well. They would end up playing Memphis, and then they would move on to play North Texas. I don't necessarily love the setup for UTSA or North Texas because of the way that this bracket is turning out.
No, I think you make a really good point in particular about like that East Carolina team, right? Because they're playing some pretty good basketball right now. They're really physical. I might join her. We don't talk about her enough because they haven't won as much as like UTSA or South Florida.
They're starting to, though.
But they are. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think that team can be dangerous, and they know how to win in March as well. And so I think that plays a big factor. I think the thing about the American is that there's no guarantee on any of the games. Like, you look at UTSA's final record in the regular season, and they only have 1 loss. But there were some very close calls, so you can't just guarantee that the Roadrunners are going to run their way through this bracket, right? And I think they know that as well. So I'm really excited to see how it all plays out, because I think that, again, it's called March Madness for a reason, and I think you're seeing why when you take a look at those bracket predictions. Teams can sneak in. What do we always say about Memphis? They're lurking in the background. There are teams that are lurking. Again. They're lurking again. And so I like you said, that 8-9 matchup, East Carolina. Yeah. I think that there's some lurking. And I mean, we haven't even touched too much on Tulane in this show. I think that's another lurking type team, because what they've been able to do in Ashley Langford's first year has been incredible. And I don't see that stopping in March.
I'm a little disappointed that Tulane didn't end up as one of those top 4 teams across the board. Because
I agree.
If they did, I think you would see, hey, they've got enough talent to win whatever game they're in. The depth is where it comes in question, and now they've got to win 4 games in 4 days in order to make it happen across the board, which is not easy to do. I think if they were a top 4 team, then all of a sudden I think we're speaking a little more highly of Tulane and what their eligibility is. Now, you mentioned East Carolina, a team that has been to the title game in each of the last 2 years. They've got a tough road ahead of them because they've got to go through North Texas. The South Florida side of the bracket is it's concerning to me, because on 2 separate occasions, you've got one team that is due probably for a loss. And I know UTSA fans are going to hate me for saying that. They only have one loss.
You always roast me for saying that I liked losing 1 or 2 games in conference play when I was an athlete. But you just confirmed my theory.
They're due. They're due to lose because they've had a couple of close calls.
We'd lose
Teams
that
are
second game in the series. I'd be like, yes.
South
Not
Florida.
Really. I'd probably have to run that.
See, but then I'm looking at South Florida on the opposite occasion, where they've lost a couple games down the stretch. I'm not super confident there.
I know. It's a delicate balance, right?
They're limping into it.
Yeah.
South Florida is not as strong as they have been, unless we just talked about it. Laura Putu steps up and plays a big role. I think Levy needs to play a better role off the bench. Puises has been incredible throughout the year. There's elements of that South Florida team that I still really do like. But if they're limping down the stretch, that confidence level's at an all-time low.
I know.
And so they've got to be ready for that challenge, because whoever they get out of the first round isn't going to be an easy matchup either, because they have a win under their belt as well. All right, now we've got Cinderellas. The Cinderellas of the tournament, I've tabbed this as they have to be outside of the top 6. Okay. So they're not just – they don't get the bye.
Yep.
And they're not favored in the first round.
Right.
So that's the way I wanted to set this up. So outside of the top 6, out of the 7 through the 13 seeds, which on the women's side would include East Carolina, Rice, UAB, Memphis, Wichita State, Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, based off of my prediction, who would it be?
East Carolina is mine.
You're going with East Carolina?
Yep, and I'm going to tell you why. I think I already touched on it a little bit, but Mai Joyner is, again, one of the best players in this league, but we just don't talk about her enough. She's a big body, right? Super athletic, really quick. She has the ability to rebound. She's very aggressive as long as she's able to stay level. And that's something that Kim McNeil talked to us about, is when she's able to stay level, she's very, very good. And she said that she doesn't even think that she's reached her full potential yet, which is scary for how great she's been these last couple of years. The fact that Kim McNeil doesn't think she's where she needs to be or could be just says how good of a player she actually is. I also think this is a really tough East Carolina team. They are gritty and scrappy and physical. And I think when you get to March and you have to play however many games and however many days, and it's game after game after game, if you can be physical all those games and you have that endurance to be able to play through some of the exhaustion that you're inevitably going to face, I think that favors well for you. And East Carolina's done it before. So those are my 3 reasons why I think they could be the Cinderella of this tournament, based on that criteria of picking somebody 6th and below, or 7th and below.
Yeah, and I like your thought process there too, because think about, they just pushed North Texas to double overtime just a couple weeks ago. They just beat South Florida, and they beat them by 11 points. I mean, they were by 9 points. They were pretty emphatic in the win there. They've beaten Tulsa. They've beaten UAB. They've lost some games they definitely should not have lost. Memphis, I mean, they got blown out by UTSA. They probably shouldn't have lost that. Florida Atlantic is another one. Other than that, they've kind of split their way across the board.
Right.
But they've won 3 of their last 4 at the timing of this show. I know they play UTSA on Tuesday night. I'm sure that'll probably be a tough one at home to end out the season. So at the time of this filming, they've won 3 of their last 4. They'll go into that tournament on a high, no matter what happens against UTSA. So I think when you look at East Carolina, they're on that verge. But I'm going to go with another team that was also in the championship game last year. Give me the Rice Owls to do it again, to make a run again. I'm not saying they're going to win the tournament, but they're going to make a run. And the reason being, they've got one of the best players that's just sitting dormant in their lineup right now, in Malia Fisher.
She's so good.
First team preseason all-conference player. She's still averaging 13 and 7, but she hasn't played well lately. She's only had a double-figure scoring output in 1 of her last 5 games, and that includes games against Florida Atlantic, UTSA, UAB, and Temple. Teams have really honed in on her. They've had to figure it out across the board. She's gotten in some foul trouble a couple times down the road. She's still a great rebounder. She has 10 rebounds in 2 of her last 4 games. I think the lights being bright again and that lower seed doesn't bother the Rice Owls. They don't bother
They've done it before
on that roster, because Lindsay Edmonds says, I've got smart players. I've got players that ask why. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And by this time of the year, they end up buying in. They end up saying, let's do it that way because you're the coach and we got to listen to you. And Lindsay Edmonds is a phenomenal coach. We saw that last year when they found their way into the championship game and the win it all. Give me the Rice Owls to make another run and to be the Cinderella of the American tournament on the women's side. I think it would be a phenomenal story if they did it again. We've seen teams do it again, and this is a way for Rice to make another go at it.
I like it.
And I like their matchup. I think they beat UTSA in that first round. I actually called that as an upset a couple weeks ago. If you watch this show, I already tried that. Guess what? It was
trying it again.
It was a 1-possession game, so I'm swinging again. Let's swing for it one more time. I think Rice gets it done, and they make a run.
Okay. All right.
Watch them just pit her out in the first round.
Yeah. I mean,
just because I made a big stink
and if
about it.
if not, then you can clip this and you can be right about something again. So
yeah, that's why you throw potatoes at the wall, see if it sticks.
I've never heard that before, but I'm gonna let you go with it. So
that's how it goes.
Let's talk about superlatives though, because we've talked about the Cinderellas and we've talked about the recap of this season and what that bracket looks like. So we picked some favorite moments, some favorite posts throughout the entire year. And we created some season superlatives. We're going to start with our top marketing moments because these are folks that maybe don't always get enough credit. We're talking about the players and the coaches. Yeah. So let's highlight the marketing moment. On the women's side, feeling like money, a get rich night named for head coach Diane Richardson. They printed out $100 bills with Coach Richardson's face on it. They showered her with those $100 bills. This was incredible. They had fans come out to the game. I think they had a giveaway at halftime that you can maybe win like an X amount of dollars, like if you made a half court shot. And you also got some Diane Richardson $100 bills. So, I mean, shout out to the marketing folks over at Temple for this one.
So I wonder who came up with this. Like, was it just was it one of the like associate vice presidents? Was it one of the higher ups, or was it just like an intern in the hallway that said, you know what about get rich? I mean, we have a coach named Rich. Why not go that way and play off of that? And they're like, that's genius. We agree. That's cool. No, this is well executed. It's funny. It's personable. It's not just throw it out and see what happens. This had some thought process behind it. And look at the celebration. They had $100 bills to celebrate a win and making it rain in the locker room. Incredible.
I love the picture with Coach Richardson with the sunglasses on, and she's just standing there with like the giant bill. Like, I think that might have topped it.
She's like, when I took this job at Temple, this is not
what I had.
But whatever. Maybe it'll lead to NIL money.
Maybe get rich.
Part of it. All right. Speaking of creative, I love the creative marketing there. This is creative on social media. This is our favorite social media moment. How about the Last Dance? Two of the best players in the conference who have been by each other's side through thick and thin with UTSA. Both have gone through some injury struggles in the past. Both have gone through some losses in the past. They win a regular season title, and they go out on a high note. Now, it's not over yet. They've got tournament time. But at the Convocation Center, these two are legendary. I wouldn't be shocked if we see that number 32 hanging in the rafters anytime soon, and it might be with one of her best friends by her side as well.
I know. I just love first of all, I love the design of this poster because, I mean, obviously playing off like Michael Jordan's Last Dance. And when you talk about phenomenal players who have come through UTSA and the conference, Jordan Jenkins stands out especially. And I think that, you're always figuring out how you can be creative and how you can honor your seniors. What a great and creative way. So shout out to the social team over at UTSA for this one. We want to give you a little superlative for sure.
Yeah, very, very cool along the way. And of course, they've got a chance to do something special whenever it comes to March and making it happen. Now, what about meaningful moments? That's a pretty meaningful moment across the board, right? You had one that you brought up to me. I think it's perfect for this superlative.
Yeah, so I think that you need to go over to South Florida's social media page to actually watch both of these videos. But basically what it is, Romy Levy and Sammy Puisis wrote Dear Basketball letters. And I'm getting chills just talking about it because it starts with their journey from when they were young girls to how they got to South Florida and just some of the things that they've endured and what they've been through and what basketball has meant to them. And when I think about meaningful moments, and especially, being a former athlete myself, sport does so much for you. And if you have to sit down and pen a letter to the sport that has basically made you the person that you are today, it's something that is certainly meaningful. You're going to shed some tears if you watch these videos, but that was my superlative for meaningful moment in the American this year.
I wanted you to introduce that as a former student athlete. I know. Did you ever write one?
No,
Back in the day?
They do it for the Women's College World Series, and it's one of my favorite things about like watching that production. I think for me, when I wrote my last Instagram post, I spent like a lot of time. It was kind of like my Dear Softball moment, because it literally shapes you, and it kind of just creates the person that you are, and it creates who you are going forward into the world, and it's incredibly sad and bittersweet because you're like, oh, I can't believe I accomplished all of this, but then it's a part of who you are for your entire life. And then one day they're just, like on a random day in May, they're like, yep, you're done forever. So it's a lot to process. And I think like doing things like this kind of help with that processing and just, give yourself a little bit of credit for how far you've come.
No, and it was really well written from both Puisis and Levy, and it's really worth a chance of going and looking at it online. And I'm not a former student athlete. I've been in the media game for a little bit of time. I get to see it year in and year out because it is at the end of the campaign. you don't know what the team's going to look like in the future. You don't know who you're going to get to talk to again. And it's kind of a bittersweet moment, but that's what makes sports special across the board. And I don't have the sentiment, at least of being that former athlete specifically, but I have the sentiment of seeing some really great athletes in their own right, in their career on a high note and in their career in respective ways. And I can't wait to see how they do it in the future. Now, they may do it in a really cool uniform, because I have the alternate uniform of the year for you on All-American. It is South Florida. It is the same team that Puisis and Livy play for. It is the Bulls in their dark mode uniforms, the TB at night, that neon look to it. And my favorite part is the script Tampa Bay.
I was going to say that's
front.
my favorite part too. I love I love just the Tampa Bay part of it. And I love when they like refer to everything like in the Bay, Tampa Bay, but having that right on the front, I'm a big fan. I like it a lot.
Yeah, this is a great look. The men's team also had a look like this, so we're going to take them out of the running for the best uniform on the men's side, just because they had a look this regard. But this is a great look across the board. It was phenomenal on the floor. They were able to wear it at home and on the road, which I love. I hope they see that we see these in the tournament too.
They
get to the championship. They get
you
to
gotta
like, the
bring
title
out
game.
the TB at night.
Come on. Now.
Well, here's my thing, and I don't know this as a former athlete. You gotta go look at what your record is in the uniform. If you don't win, so like we win in pins.
So you're superstitious.
Oh yes. If you lose in a tournament with a game like with a certain uniform, you better hope you don't have to wear that one again.
I'm only superstitious if it has a specific impact on the game itself. Which, like, if
I wish I could be that way.
Well, if that's even a mental thing, if it's a mental thing, then yes, it has an effect on the game. Like if you're a baseball or a softball player, you don't step on the line when you walk out to the
left
field.
foot over the line every time.
Okay, so there you go. So if you don't do that, it might mess up your psyche. So I actually agree with you on this regard. If they don't like the record in the uniform, don't wear them. But guess what? They look good, so I think you should wear them nonetheless. They weren't wearing these uniforms, but this is apparently a South Florida segment.
I know.
We've got our ice-cold moment of the year. They weren't wearing the TB at night, but they were relying on Sammy Puisis.
We've watched this so many times. And it is a South Florida heavy superlatives on the women's side, but how can you not have that as the coldest moment? I'm shivering right here in my seat.
Game-winning or game-tying buzzer beater to send it into overtime. And then in overtime, she says, let me line it up from the logo. Let me go ahead and put this one up from the middle of Tampa Bay, and let's knock it down to win it over Rice. Again, I still think that Rice House team can be a Cinderella. They took South Florida all the way up into the wire on the road. They've got the talent to do it. It's just got to hit at the right time, and you got to find a way to guard Puisis, guard her on the outside, or else things are going to get a little bit sticky.
Kind of hard to do, but we'll see.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done, but we'll see if anybody can guard Sammy Puisis in the tournament. But I think we've covered a lot on the women's side. Yeah. I think it's time we move to the men's side of things. Now, they have a little bit more time left in their regular season. Their tournament starts after the women's. Yep. So you did a little bit of a bracket overview, but we still have some time left. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, this is what the bracket looks like right now as we sit in the recording of this show as well, because there's still a couple of weeks left in the game and in the process. Of course, right now the leader in the clubhouse are the Memphis Tigers, but right on their heel, here come the North Texas Mean Green that have all of a sudden won 6 straight. They survive in a tight one at the Super Pit earlier in the week on national television. Wichita State playing better basketball as of late. UAB is still very much so in the mix. All three of them have already grabbed the bye to start. So you have Memphis, North Texas, UAB for sure as a bye, whereas Tulane is in the 4 spot right now. But they could finish anywhere from the 2 spot all the way down to the 6th spot, because then we get into just a jumbled mess of teams across the way.
We can't even talk about all that because my head's going to hurt too much. There's too many more games to be played.
Guess what? We're going to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Here are the top 4 teams right now as they sit. You've got Tulane on the board with a couple of games remaining. I'm going to get you their schedule momentarily because they were 6th initially. But then now they've got UAB and East Carolina. That game against UAB is crucial across the board. And then East Carolina is a team that's currently on the outside looking in as well that has a chance to make some run too.
I'm just really, when I look at these couple of teams, I think Tulane, for me, I think they're going to pop into that 4 spot. I think they're going to stay there. I think based on their schedule, as you said, there's some of those crucial matchups, but I think that they have the ability to be there. And it's funny because at the beginning of the year, I would have told you were crazy, to be honest. And no hate to any of the Tulane fans, but that non-conference slate for them didn't look that good.
No, it didn't.
And I think based on what they have left, I think they're going to have a possibility to stay in that top 4 spot and get the bye. Now, as we move into the other parts, the 5 to 8 seeds, it's not as clear cut for me. No. I think that these teams all kind of beat up on each other. It's funny that Wichita State's in that 8 seed because I'm going to talk a lot about them on this show today because I'm still bought in. They lost their last 2 games, but to North Texas and UAB.
Yeah.
And
they were both pretty tight.
Both tight games. I know UAB pulled away at the end, but I think that being said, they're in that 8 spot in this group of 4 here. So I don't know. I just think a lot of things can happen, and I have honestly no idea any prediction of how these 4 teams will finish.
Don't worry. I've got you later on in the segment. We'll talk more about what I think is going to happen as we go along. Here are the final 9 through 13 seeds. Of course, we talked about how the 12 and 13 seed will play with a chance to go into that early spot. Wichita State and Rice play later in the week, and then Charlotte and UTSA actually played to round out the season. They'll be the last game to finish up in the regular season. So keep an eye on those couple of games because with Rice and Charlotte being the 12 and 13 at the moment, things could get a little sticky down the stretch too about who's going to play in the play-in game and who's going to be in that first-round matchup at North Texas as a part of the Super Pit. By the way, it's free admission. You should go to those games. I think it's
I'll be
free
there.
Basketball. Come on, man. Maria Trivelpiece said she will sign
Free
an autograph
basketball.
for you.
Oh,
Whatever
I don't think anybody
whatever
wants my
you want to
autograph.
sign, whatever you want signed, Maria Trivelpiece will do
You're
it.
making some promises.
With
that,
the exception of body parts.
Yeah,
So
let's
can't do
move
that
to
one.
your A team.
Going to A team. So this is a opportunity now for again, highlighting players that are not going to be on the winning, on the top teams across the board, right? We're not talking about the all-conference honorees on my side. It's the same criteria as the women's side. This is the undersung players that are going to be the difference between winning and losing in March. And I've got a couple of Memphis Tigers on here. I've got Colby Rogers, who's been the X factor all year for the Tigers. If
That's why they beat UAB the other day.
Exactly. He was going off in that game. As long as Colby Rogers is scoring, which he averages 10 a game, then I think you're going to win a lot of games. Danger on the inside for Memphis is a crucial piece of that whole puzzle because if your guard play, of course, they're going to have their thought process, but teams are going to dominate you in the post unless you have a guy like Danger who's going to step up and play big. Same thing for North Texas and Mulai Sissoko. He's been playing the best basketball of his career as of late. He has to play at a high level in March if they hope to make a run. Same thing for Marcus Millender. Millender is kind of he's the Batman or the Robin to Primo Spears' Batman.
Right.
Primo Spears is an NBA caliber player, or at least a professional caliber player. They need somebody else. They need a Robin. They need somebody that can help them be a Cinderella across the board, maybe looking ahead to my next segment. But Marcus Millender is that Robin to Primo Spears' Batman, and he's had a great year that's kind of been undersung because of what Spears has done. And then same thing for McGee. McGee is the same thing for Lindeborg as Millender is to Spears. If you've got McGee playing at a high level at the guard spot and he shoots better, if he can shoot better, that's all I ask, is have a higher percentage, higher look across the board. He's a junior. He's shooting 54% from the field. When he's shooting above 54%, which is great, all of a sudden you're unstoppable if you're UAB. So there's my 5, my A team across the board.
I like that. I really like the Colby Rogers pick right there. And I also like the example of Millender because I think that UTSA team is a group of people that we didn't talk too much about on this show just because they haven't had their record where some of the other teams are. But I mean, Primo Spears, as you said, probably one of the best players in this conference. And so I like the addition of Millender there. Now, mine, same criteria as the women's. These are the players that other teams need to shut down in order to beat these teams. Now,
Okay.
if they don't do it, then these teams are going to win. These are some of the best players on their respective squads. So PJ Haggerty is kind of self-explanatory. He's second in the conference in scoring. He just turns it on at different points in the game. You'll look, and 2 minutes later, he'll be up to like 21 points, and you're like, I don't even know how we got here. He just finds ways to score. He's great at getting to the basket. He's also great when he gets to the foul line as well, and he gets there a lot. Moving on, RJ Felton from East Carolina. This is a team that I think can make a run if they play some of their better basketball. We've seen them cause some trouble for some of the better teams in the conference. I think we talked about how they're small, but that guard play works really well for them. Felton has had some of those big moments, and kind of like what I said on the women's side, the players that play well in the clutch are going to succeed in March. If Felton can play well, then East Carolina has a chance to make a little bit of a run. I have 2 in my next guard spot here because I struggled.
Cheating.
I know, but
How do you put 6 players on the floor at one time?
you can't, but this is why I'm going to explain. Let me explain. Okay. So Jamal Mashburn Jr., when he is playing, now he's missed the last 4 games when this show is airing. He's missed the last 4 games. When he's playing, Temple has a chance to be really good. We saw what they did at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
He's been out a lot with injury. He's leading the conference in scoring. I need him on my A team, but he has not been on the basketball court. So that's why he needs to be there as like a little bit of a caveat. Xavier Bell, on the other hand, is on a team that won 6 of their last 8 games, with their 2 losses coming to 2 of the top 3 teams in the conference. He averaged 23.5 last week. Even in those losses, he had 19, or let me look at my notes before I say this incorrectly. He had 19 against North Texas. UAB, he was on fire as well.
Yep.
And so I like him on there because when we get to Cinderellas, I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview. I like that Wichita State team, and that's why he needs to be on that guard spot. So that's why I cheated and put 2 guards in that.
I didn't realize we
A-team.
could use asterisks on injured players.
I can do whatever I want to do. I am the reporter of the American Conference, and so, yeah, I'm just going to make my own rules. Moving forward, Axel Lendenborg is self-explanatory. You talked about Batman and Robin. There's nothing that Axel Lendenborg can't do. He can rebound. He can score. He's a leader. Great personality when we had him on the show. Stop laughing at me. I like to make my own rules there. And then Tulane, if they want to stay in that 4 spot, Caleb Banks needs to play at the level that he's capable of. He does a great job on the boards. He's averaging 15.4 per game. But as we mentioned on the women's side, if he goes quiet, just like Putu for USF, then Tulane struggles a little bit.
Yeah.
So I need him to continue to play well and score points and rebound the basketball, and that is my A team.
And I want to make one quick correction on my A team. When I was making a plea to shoot the ball better, I was not talking about Jabari McGee. Jabari McGee shoots the ball exceptionally well. If he continues to do that, he put up 22 points and shot 7 of 10 from the field against Memphis. Keep doing what you're doing. I was really hoping it for Millender. I want Millender to shoot the ball better because across the board, he's really struggled down the stretch in terms of his field goal percentage. If he can take a step forward in that regard and we get that Batman Robin that we just asked about, I think
love that
then
analogy.
I think then you're going to see that success move forward for UTSA, a team that, as we look at my projected bracket, is in the mix at the bottom of the bracket. So here's what I think 1 through 13 is going to look like, and I'll even give you an explanation. I've written it all down for you here. I think Memphis goes 2-0 in their final 2 games.
As I sit here.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep, 2-0 in their final 2 games, so I think they're the top seed. I think North Texas goes 2-0 in their final 2, so they will have an opportunity to be the 2 seed. UAB will go 2-0 as well. I think those 3 teams are the strength of the conference right now and undoubtedly are the best team across the board. After that, I think it gets a little bit dicey. I think Tulane goes 0-2, but they're still going to be the 4 seed because they get help from ECU and FAU both falling in some of their later games across the board because ECU plays Florida Atlantic. That'll be a tight game. ECU will beat Tulane. I think they'll fall to Florida Atlantic. And that's where I think Tulane keeps that 4 seat, so they'll get some help there. East Carolina will jump FAU will jump East Carolina because they'll defeat East Carolina for the second time this year. They'll own that tiebreaker as both teams would end up at 10-8. So I think Florida Atlantic would ultimately be the 5 seed. East Carolina would be the 6. Wichita State, I think they go 1-1 down the stretch. We just talked about how they played really well against North Texas. They've got Rice coming up on Thursday. I think they probably have that game in hand. But then they play Tulsa, and it's kind of a weirdo, I think they play Tulsa. I think they win that game too. So I think they are 9-9 across the board. Other than that, Temple goes 1-1. They finish at 8-10, mostly because they are without the best player scoring-wise in the conference. They're going to have a tough first matchup against South Florida, a team that, of course, has been dealing with the loss of Amir Abdur-Rahim throughout the year, trying to kind of piece together what they look like going into the postseason and haven't played particularly well down the stretch. And then I think it's UTSA, Tulsa, and then on after that, Rice and Charlotte. So that's the way I have it kind of lined up. I went through and simulated all these games. I think that's how it'll fall in. I'll probably be wrong. There will be a couple changes here and there, but for the most part, I think that's what it looks like.
If you get it completely right,
there's a chance.
Yeah, I think you need to like play the lottery or something.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
What I would rather get right is what happens down the stretch. Now, Zach, could we go back and maybe take that full screen again? I want to talk through the roots here. I want to talk through the path that each of these teams have across the board. Here we go. Thank you, Zach. So if we have Temple in that first round, right, or the second round, I should say, Temple across the board versus USF. You've got Memphis lurking. No one wants to see Memphis right now. I don't even want to see Memphis, and I'm not even playing. That's just how good they've been playing and how good they are across the board.
Their defense was showing up as well, which
absolutely. Whoever wins the 12 and 13 seed game at North Texas, that's going to be interesting because then they've got that inexperience of Florida Atlantic. Then they've got kind of the Tulane team that's probably the bottom 4 out of the top 4, right? They're the team that kind of pitter-patter down the stretch, got lucky because one team won and one team didn't across the board, and they end up with the double bye. But Florida Atlantic isn't super convincing. Tulane isn't super convincing. We could see Rice as a team that has pushed some of the better teams in the conference but still ends up at a severe losing record in conference play, somehow make the Temple-esque type of run that they made last year if there's a team that's going to make a jump. But I really think the Cinderella is going to come from that game below it. Okay. The UTSA and Wichita State game. I think those are the two teams that have the talent to be a Cinderella, and I'm going to go ahead and make UTSA my Cinderella across the board. I think that's a team that can certainly win, and if they win that first game against Wichita State, which would be a tough thing to do, they go up against North Texas, who is the only team to defeat North Texas at the Super Pit all year long.
UTSA Roadrunners.
The UTSA Roadrunners are the only team to do so. They have a chance to do it again at Dickies Arena. I don't know what the crowd would look like. I would think having their women's team as highly vaulted as they've been throughout the year would actually mean they would have some pretty good crowds in Fort Worth. Of course, just a short drive up I-35. If you're a fan of the Roadrunners, I think you should be there for multiple days at a time, sticking around for whatever run the women's team makes, and I think you should keep an eye on Austin Clonch and this UTSA men's team as well.
I like the points that you make, and I'm not actually disagreeing with you, but I'm picking my Cinderella a little bit differently because in that game, you said whoever would win it, that's who you're taking. I'm going to take the opponent, and I'm going to go with the Wichita.
So you're agreeing.
I think your points were valid, but I think my points are more valid. So I think that Wichita State wins that game and then becomes the Cinderella for 3 reasons, right? The way they've been playing right now. Sure. They won 6 in a row, and as I already said, they lost 2 games to 2 of the top 2 out of 3 teams in the conference. Yeah. Second, Xavier Bell. He has been playing phenomenal. That's why I put him on my A team right now. And I also think that he has these leadership qualities about him that has been helping this entire Shockers team. Third, I think the guys are bought in, and one thing that I think is really cool is this junkyard mentality that they've kind of developed. They're bringing like this little junkyard dog with them to games. And apparently when I was watching the broadcast the other day, that's been the turning point for them, just showing up and just wanting to get after it, wanting to attack. And I think if you bring a junkyard dog mentality to Dickies Arena, I think that is going to fare well for you. So
I like it.
Those are my 3 reasons why I think my team in this picking is going to beat your Cinderella team.
Okay.
Yeah.
This seems like the perfect opportunity for a wager, for a non-monetary wager.
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to do any kind of wagers.
I mean,
I'm an employee of a college
it's a fun
conference.
thing. It's just a fun thing.
Okay,
it's
no
just
one
a fun-
listen. Okay.
This is an opportunity for us to make a show bet. We haven't made one
Ooh,
yet.
okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is like
Okay.
so. How about this? Whoever has to, or whoever, if that ends up being the matchup, right?
Yep.
Man, I'm trying to think of something that we could do on the show.
Ooh. What's your least favorite food? You have to eat it.
I eat a little bit of everything.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll have to think about
Yeah.
this. We'll come back to you on it because it has to be great. Like I want you to be so embarrassed when you lose.
Okay.
So I can't just think of that on the fly.
I'll keep thinking as we take a look at our top marketing moment.
As
I'm
we
going to
look-
think on it. I'm going to get it by the end of the show. We're going
Okay.
to come up with
Okay.
something by the end of the show. Top marketing moment. There's no surprise here. Is there?
No.
This is Seinfeld Night by Florida Atlantic. We even brought this up on one of our All-American episodes earlier in the month because guess what? It's a great marketing piece, and it was phenomenally executed. You had all of the different elements from the Pez dispensers to special appearances to the graphics, and then, of course, Florida Atlantic playing in front of a capacity crowd down in Paradise. I think this is just tremendous, and they probably started a trend here, I would think.
I liked it a lot. I think people were really excited about it. You saw the posts on social media. There were a lot of fans at the game. I think there was a Kramer impersonator, if I'm not mistaken. I think there's a lot of thought put into it, and I give credit to that Florida Atlantic marketing team as well. They win our superlative for best marketing moment. And it was creative, just like our favorite creative social moment. And this one we also saw on the show last week as well, but I said it last week. Just the language on it, $1.50 for 1 cent. I mean, I love it. We gotta give it some more love.
I still think I'm never going to actually call Coach Hardaway Penny Hardaway ever again. I'm just going to call him 1 cent.
I think if you do one of his games, you should just introduce yourself and call him that directly.
Oh, he watches our show, so
Yeah.
I've already had to do that.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
about right.
So he knows exactly.
No, very nicely done, and of course, 150 wins. That's not easy to do either. He gets a lot of flack just because of the transparency that he coaches with, and with the spotlight that he coaches under. But stop giving this man any flack. He has a top 20 basketball team in the country. They are by far the favorites to make a run and to make this thing interesting. I'll give my champion or my predicted champion of both the women's and men's side momentarily as we end out the show. But I still think Memphis has a really good shot nonetheless to get it done. I mentioned the alternate uniforms, right? And we had South Florida early, took them out of the running because the men have the TB at night opportunity there as well. But we'll get to that in a moment with some meaningful moments here. This is a really, really meaningful moment. South Florida, of course, has the great uniforms. They've got this great moment as well, naming Amir Abdur-Rahim the honorary Coach of the Year in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to be present for this moment, and I think the video was fantastic and superbly edited, but just to be there in person kind of captured it even more so. I think that what this man meant to not only his players, but his family and the entire Tampa Bay community and the entire basketball community was just so greatly on display in this one night and throughout the entirety of this season. And it's a really hard moment, but it was beyond meaningful. And you know, we had a lot of South Florida superlatives on the women's side, but there was no way that we could have a more meaningful moment than this on the men's side. And I think that you see these young men playing for him every single day, and you saw the posts after his passing. And I think that when you talk about meaningful and impact and what someone leaves behind, Amir Abdur-Rahim epitomized that.
No doubt about it. And of course, like we said, there's nothing that can top this in terms of meaningful moments. And we've spoken very much so on his legacy and what he has left behind at South Florida and across the basketball community as well. So there's our meaningful moment of the year on the men's side of things. I mentioned uniforms, though. Can't give it to South Florida since we continue to run the board. How about a little bit of Mardi Gras theme? It's Mardi Gras week down there. Fat Tuesday has come and gone in New Orleans, and Tulane celebrated by putting out one of the cleanest alternate uniforms you possibly could. Went with the kicks and everything. This is an incredible look, and a little Tulane men's and women's basketball. Women had a Mardi Gras uniform too. Those look great as well, but we're going to give the best alternate uniform to the men on the Tulane side.
I just think the intricate detail, right? Like on the side, it's incredible. Like I think that was my favorite thing, is just the way that they had, I don't even know what the technical term is, but the way that it detailed along the piping was my favorite part.
We'll find out what the technical detail is. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's beyond my comprehension. I talk about sports. Somebody who is much smarter than me can tell me what that detail is.
Great.
Thank you.
Moving on to our coldest moment. We're going to take you back to New Year's Eve. This is the conference opener for North Texas and UAB. UAB picked as preseason favorites. North Texas established themselves as a contender with Adam Wright's buzzer beater as the clock strikes midnight on national television at the Super Pit in front of a capacity crowd. Adam Wright sends the place into hysterics with a contested three. Bang! Falling to the floor, doesn't matter. He has the best ending to 2024, and it helps set North Texas up to possibly be the 2 seed in 2025.
I mean, if you're UAB, you can't even be mad about your defense there, because Adam Wright just shot it right in his face, and he was heavily contested. Time was running out. It was a difficult shot, and he threw it up there and made it. You see the smiles. I think the cool part for me is like the way the lights turn off, like after a win. Yeah. But the fact that it was on New Year's Eve and he makes the shot, it just seemed like a little bit more special. So talk about ice in your veins. Adam Wright, have yourself a night there.
It was awesome. And right now, as it stands, this could be the difference in North Texas being the 2 seed or the 3 seed.
Yep.
And so that could very well be a crucial part in how things are going to turn out at Dickies Arena and how the brackets are going to look across the board. So coldest moment of the year goes to Adam Wright. Now, it's March. There's going to be another cold moment down the line.
Hopefully plenty. That's what I'm hoping for.
There's going to be a couple of them at Dickies Arena, Fort Worth, Texas. It's going to be a great one. Here is the reminder of the tournament schedule. Let's start with the women's side of things. The women's bracket, of course, gets started early March. What is it? March 8th is the first game up in North Texas?
March 8th. Yep.
So that's when it all gets started, and then, it is on from there. Book it right now. This is going to be one of the most interesting tournaments across the board, because you've got UTSA, you've got North Texas, South Florida's a contender, Temple's right there in the mix again. This is a crucial tournament, and anybody can end up on top in this one.
Yeah, and it's a lot of games in a short amount of time, right? Because you have that first round on March 8th, the second round 4 games on March 9th, then the quarterfinals on March 10th, semis March 11th, champ game on March 12th. So there's no breathing room. There's a lot of basketball in a short amount of time. So if you come out to the tournament, as I suggest everyone does, you're certainly going to get your bang for your buck, because a lot of great women's basketball on tap at the American Conference Tournament.
And then you've got the men's bracket starting on Wednesday, March 12th, up at the Super Pit in Denton with the 12 seed and the 13 seed. And then, of course, full action gets started on Thursday. You've got that quick turnaround into what is just a maddening couple of days and just great basketball here and there, all culminating on Sunday, March 16th. That one on ESPN. The winner of the first, or the top side of the bracket and the bottom side. This is, of course, right now as it stands, what the bracket looks like. This could move and shake as we get closer and closer. I'm ready to make a call.
Okay, let's hear it.
On both tournaments. Okay.
Everyone pay attention.
Everybody
so we can use this as ammunition against him if he's wrong.
Okay. So I'll start with the men's bracket, just because I'm a little more confident in my pick there.
All right.
They've been the best team all year. They're the best built team across the board. The guard play is tremendous. They have the best player in the conference. and they've got some forward play, as I mentioned earlier, in Dane Danger. I think Memphis is finally going to make the run that they were anticipated to make the run in March. And I don't think it stops at Dickies Arena. I think they go all the way through. I think they win the American tournament. I also think they're going to make it at least to the Sweet 16 in March Madness, if not further. I think they'll end up as a top 6 seed in the tournament. They'll be a wonderful team moving forward. I think Memphis gets it done, but I also think it's going to be Memphis and UAB in that title game. Keep that in mind. It's going to be a great tournament across the board. Give me a Memphis win to get it done. As for the women's side, it's a tougher task because UTSA has been great all year. South Florida is probably the deepest team across the board. But there's one team that I keep looking at. There's one team that I keep seeing as a possible front runner that is just
I didn't even
due
realize you did that.
to get it done. Take my one shot here, Zach. I think North Texas wins it on the women's side. I think Jason Burton and company finally get it done. I think they go all the way, and I think they win the tournament, go into their first NCAA tournament since 1988, and I think that's how North Texas wins on the women's side. And I think it's going to be an incredible tournament. It's going to take like double overtime or something in one of those games just to get it done. I just think they're the most disciplined team. I think they're just as talented as UAB. They challenged, UTSA. They challenged the Roadrunners down at the Convocation Center and came up short by one possession. Best player in the conference plays for the Roadrunners, but there is a close second best player in the conference that plays for North Texas. Her name is Tamisha Lampkin. I think North Texas is the best team on the women's bracket, and I think they win it.
You pulled a Lee Corso on me.
I did
even see. I
had it down there the whole time. Yeah,
I didn't even notice. But you make some good points. I'm not going to make any picks. I'm just going to cheer for everyone, and I hope that everyone has fun.
Here. I'm a guest. They make me come in here, and we just talk along the way. And we've had so much fun doing it. That's the fun part about all of this is because I love talking hoops. I've had the pleasure of getting to call a lot of these teams throughout the year, whether they're in Denton or across the board or even at Fort Worth, in Fort Worth as well. I have our bet. If you're willing to accept to the terms.
All right, let's hear it.
The loser of that bet has to ride a mechanical bull in Fort Worth.
Oh, I'm 100% in. I would lose on purpose. I love that challenge. Okay, I'm in. Loser has to ride the mechanical bull.
Has to ride a mechanical bull. We'll sign a waiver to get it done, but that's going to be our bet moving forward. All right. Little Fort Worth flair to get it done. Enjoy the tournament, everybody. We'll be back after the tournament is over to preview what the postseason looks like, whether it's NCAA tournament, NIT tournament, CBI, whatever it may be. We're going to preview it across the board and see what exactly madness ensues in Fort Worth. Can't wait to do so. For Zach and Chris in the back, who do a phenomenal job all year long, putting us on the air, making us look and sound good, or as good as they possibly can. For Maria Trivelpiece, I'm Kyle Youmans. We'll see you next time with more All-American.